Nothing has to be perfect. This is the time where things can be messy and you're just trying new ideas, right? The past couple days, I've been playing around with the character in my head. So the character in mind is like a little grass plant character. He's small and chubby, and he's got these tiny little arms and legs, and I just picture him sitting down, and he's got a little sprout growing on the top of his head. Starting off, I'm just going to be drawing out the character's body. So I'm starting off with a couple circles, keeping things really light. Nothing has to be perfect. This is the time where things can be messy and you're just trying new ideas, right? So I'm adding in the belly, everything, right? The legs, and everything can change shape too. And we're using primitive circles, lines, and squares to create the body and create the contours. So I know roughly how the light will hit the character and where the shadows will fall. Drawing his eyes, mouth, everything. Drawing a little bean sprout on top of his head. And really, this stage is just a sketch. No one is supposed to see this. And he's a pretty simple character. I think the whole process is going to take maybe an hour and a half to create. It shouldn't be too long or anything. He's pretty simple. He's one color. Of course, he's going to have different values to him. Yeah, he's looking good so far. We have a nice little character laid out. He's got a personality. He's looking really cute and very approachable, which is what I was hoping for. I want him to look like a little bush that's come to life. So moving on to the second phase, this is the time where we refine our detail. We create nice sharp lines that are still loose, but we want them to be purposeful, right? We want them to have meaning, and we want people to understand what these lines portray. You got to be confident in this section of the drawing, because you want to establish your shadows, you want to establish your highlights, and you want to establish your key features, including the face, the emotion that this character is conveying, as well as their overall likeliness. Gone are the primitive shapes, and now we're going to be almost outlining and tracing the previous character we've drawn, but we're polishing him up a little bit, making him more presentable. This stage can even serve as a great character on its own. It doesn't need to go any further. We're going to go just a little bit further with this guy. As you can see, I've added some circles around the eyes, a more detailed smile, maybe some rosy cheeks, really defining where those shadows are. His feet have changed shape just a little bit, and so has the size of his eyes. And that's super common. Your first drawing isn't going to get everything right away correct, because that would be insane. You're still building in a sense on this stage, but you're making sure that your lines and details are purposeful. At this stage, everything is still a little bit soft, and I think we can move on to the coloring stage. Coloring stage, we are playing around with some simple shapes. We're basically going to trace a outline of the character, and we're going to place that under a new layer. It's going to be right under our pencil sketch, just so that everything looks nice and neat. We're choosing a base color, going around, and we're going to fill that in. And from there, we're going to just basically add shadows and contour to the character as if they were living and breathing, right? And I'm using the spray paint tool under the medium setting, because I think it gives it a nice texture. It's not like an airbrush where it's a very smooth gradient. I want to have a little bit of something in there, a little bit of texture to give it a little bit more of an interesting look, right? So we're adding in those shadows, we're adding in those highlights in this stage, adding some rim lights on the back right. So as you can see, there's a shadow, but we're going to add a rim light right on the back so it can define him a little bit nicer. I'm going to actually make a clipping mask and paint over the sketch itself. So since this character is like a little plant, I envision that he starts his life out in a pot or in the ground, right? So his feet and the bottom of his belly are going to be brown. That's where his roots are. That's where he's going to have, some dirt on him. And it moves up to a light gradient into a dark green color. And then right as you get up to the top of his little bean sprout on his head, I'm going to add like a bright lime green. I want it to be almost translucent. I want the light to glow through it. So if you look at your ear in the sun, it's going to look very pink, and it's almost going to look like your skin's translucent. And that's because, well, it is. It's very thin at that point of your body. So I want to convey a similar property in this character. So he's going to have light peeking through his leaves up there. And then I added a dark green color to his eyes and mouth just to separate that from his outline. Kept those shadows in the pencil lines. At this stage, he looks really cute. We can call it done here, but I want to go just a little bit further, and we're going to add just a layer of leaves, and we're going to add those right onto the body, and it's going to vary our colors a little bit. So if I choose a light green, it's going to give us a little bit of dark in there and a little bit of yellow to create, some variant colors in there. And we're just going to be very careful not to overdo it. We want our base drawing to still poke out through the character, right? So we're just going to add that to the edges and a little bit on his arms, legs, but we're going to leave his face alone because that's where all his emotions coming from, and we don't want to block that out. We want to keep that. And then lastly, this is something that's totally not necessary, but I'm going to go for a 3D mock-up. It's not going to be an actual 3D drawing, but it's going to be shaded and lit as though it were a 3D drawing. And it's not going to have any pencil lines on it. It's not going to have any sketches over it. All that's going to be blended in, and it's going to have just a smidgen more detail. What we're going to do is we're going to essentially do the same process as last time, but we're going to use a different brush. We are going under the painting category and using the round brush, and we're going to just basically blotch in the colors and the values everywhere until we get an image that we think looks really nice. The way you know that it looks good is when you shrink the image really tiny, and you kind of see what the character looks like. Even though it's very abstract with the blotchiness, you can tell that you've built up a form, almost like in clay. And now we're going to go in and sculpt and refine those details by using the smudge brush. And we're going to smudge everything together, add some highlights, shadows using our overlay tool, and then add just a little bit of details with our technical pen, an updated expression for his mouth and eyes. He looks really cute. I really like the way this one looks as well. If I have to be honest though, I really like that second variation we did, the one prior to the 3D look. I think it's simple enough, but it also has enough detail to convey that this guy is some sort of botanical creature. Let me know what you think about the character design that I've gone through. I think maybe this would be a great example of adding a background to later in the future. Also, let me know if you want to give this guy a name. Give him a name in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.